Hello. Hi, we're here. We're going to go over the Georgia O'Keeffe project for you all today. So we have a variety of things that we have collected. You want to ask your students and your teacher to bring in things to work on, and since it's still fall, they hopefully have some beautiful flowers in their garden like we found. We do have flower models. These are silk flowers, and we'll put those on the cart for you. We have a variety of objects. We have leaves, we have pine cones, we have a rock, and we have a fabulous animal skull here. So that's kind of a neat thing to bring in if somebody has. And some feathers. So these are all good options for students to sketch and then paint with watercolors. Supplies you'll need. You want to use a board or a tray to help protect desks. And then we have 9 by 12 watercolor paper for you. So every student will need that. And then, of course, you'll need one of our lovely yogurt cups filled with a little bit of water for each student. A paper towel is a good idea. And the students have watercolor trays, and you'll want at least 2 brushes, but 3 would be good. A small brush for fine work, and then a soft, large brush to do larger areas, and then also a stiffer brush. A square pointed brush will be good. You may want to get a close-up of these. You'll also want a pencil and a white crayon. Can you get those? Good. You're going to have your students select their model that they're going to look at. Whatever flower they prefer. I'll start with this one. And the first thing you want them to do is, after they've selected something, is have them hold it up and look at it from a few different angles. And they'll see that everything looks a little different depending on how you hold it. So they want to decide how are they gonna draw and paint this object. And once they do that, then you want to have your students start sketching lightly with the pencil on their watercolor paper. And you talk about very simple shapes. So for this flower, we have a circle in the center, and you want to start kind of in the center of the paper, but it's not going to be an exact circle. And of course, does it look perfectly round, or is it more squashed, depending on the angle from which you're holding it? We want to give the students maybe the idea that they're a small insect, a small bug looking at a large flower, or I hope somebody's going to do the skull. So, and then I'm going to start drawing my very simple shapes of petals. And again, what is the simple shape here? Triangular, sort of oval, squash. And this is quick. Ask your students not to put a lot of detail into this. And we want to fill up the whole page with our model. So, and as people are sketching, I'm going to go ahead and start adding the white crayon. You want to cover all of your pencil lines with the white crayon. It doesn't have to be exact because it's not going to show on the paper. So just have them give a fairly thick, heavy line. And this is to help prevent bleeding of the watercolor paint. Okay, tricks to watercolor. Have the students wash their paintbrushes in between use. So if you have to change the water, do that. One trick is just to have them rinse their brush, dab it on the paper towel, and then rinse again. Because we don't want to transfer color. We want to try and keep their paint sets new and clean and keep our colors not muddied. So I'm going to fill in my color and let that dry, and then I'm going to move on to a different area. Some tricks for watercolor painting: if the students get too much water on the paper, use the paper towel, a clean one, to try and dab some of the water off. You can also, to an extent, use a dry brush to remove some of that water and some of the extra paint. Generally, lighter applications of the color will result in sort of a light, and then later I'll show you how to add some shadows by going back over the painting with the same color, and each time you go back over it, it'll make it darker and look like there's a shadow in there.
When I was doing my background, the blue, is using this wide flat brush, and I would add extra water to it so that way it would be more diluted when it went on. And even if one of the strokes had a lot of blue, I would just then add a little bit of water and kind of spread it out. But this made it a lot easier to do my background, and it was quicker. And I also went over the edge. I didn't do it initially, but I went over with a white crayon the edge of my feathers so that way the blue wouldn't bleed in too much. Good tip.
We just want to talk about shadowing too for the older students. They can start to understand some watercolor techniques. So if you want a video really close here, you can see as you're painting, you can use paint with more water will actually give you a lighter color, and adding more paint and a little less water to your brush as you go over it gives you a much darker effect. And you can use this to add shadows to your flowers, which I will show you an example here that's already dried. Can you see that okay? So here we've used darker, just more color, and then more water on the outside of the petals to add shadows. Another way to do this is also to use a contrasting color just to add some shadow effects. And that's fun for older students to start playing with. So let's see, we were discussing the art elements and principles. So what were they? We have color and shape, right? So work with the kids, the students, in terms of sketching a shape. You know, what does this flower shape kind of look like? What does the rock look like, right? It's kind of a circle, but it's not a perfect circle, that sort of thing. And then contrast and emphasis, right? So using colors that contrast. And George O'Keeffe was a precisionist, which we just discussed, meaning that her colors were not muddied and they were very separated. So she would paint using contrasting colors that would emphasize sort of her main element. And she was very specific, so she didn't tend to run her colors into each other.